Hey everyone, it's the Queen. You guys recognize this? I'm literally saying whatever comes into my head. You're really regretting this decision. Hey everybody, how's it going? Silencio, por favor. Okay guys, you ready? Do I have to sing We Are Family? Don't make me do that. By Kool and the Gang, that was embarrassing. Sister Sledge. Anyway, welcome back, everyone. Okay, who's ready for a round table? I know you are, right? Let's do our first round table. Your host will be Lee Hayhurst, executive editor of Travolution.com. Where is he? Thank you for sponsoring the pre-event party, the pre-event yesterday. The topic will be distribution, adapt and pivot strategies. Please welcome to the stage, Lee Hayhurst. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. And yeah, thanks for everyone who came last night to the reception. We were delighted to sponsor it. We're also delighted to be partnering with Travelgate X on this year's conference. I was at the first one in 2019, so it's amazing that they're doing it again because something got in the way a few years, I don't know. And the first one was amazing, and this one's, I think, gearing up to be just as good, if not better, yes? So, yeah, thanks for coming, and thanks for coming last night. We're taking the opportunity during this couple of days to bring a VIP group out from the UK. We're calling it our digital retreat. So they're attending today, and tomorrow we've got some activities. We're going to see hotel beds, and we're going to go and do a wine tour, and then join you later for the 10th birthday party in Nikki Beach. And we love doing this sort of thing because we're bringing people together who wouldn't not necessarily ordinarily have met, and we're trying to make them understand each other's businesses better, understand each other better, and hopefully create the partnerships, which I think we all know are vital for this industry. As Bill said, I work for Travolution. We are the original and still the only European-based travel technology title. We were born 17 years ago out of the Travel Weekly group in the UK. We run an annual conference in London and an awards program in London as well. And increasingly, we're doing stuff overseas because technology is universal. It is the universal language of the travel industry. So we're looking to do as much as we can, particularly in Europe. But even further afield, because it is totally relevant to the entire industry. Talking of which, distribution is a vital part of the industry. It can be quite complicated, and for some people, I think it can be too complicated. But we'll discuss in this panel whether things are changing, how it's adapting and pivoting for growth. We've got a great panel lined up to speak to you now, so I'm going to introduce them on stage, and then we'll get cracking. So, first up, we have Alan French. Alan French is the chief executive of the new Thomas Cook. This is the OTA Thomas Cook. So please welcome Alan. Thank you. Go in the far end, yeah. Right, here's where my pronunciation starts to get tested. We've got Mirja Sickel, who's the executive vice president, Traveler-centric platform at Amadeus. Welcome. We've got June Ju, who is the Deputy General Manager America of Trip.com. So June, welcome. Come up. Now you'll notice the next two, we're getting into the tall guys now. We're going for the tallest panel on record award. First up, we've got Jari Virtanen, who is the Chief Executive of Stena Line Travel Group. Welcome, Jari. Take a seat. Take that one. And last but not least, we've got Christian Kremmer, who's Executive Vice President of AM Resorts of Europe. Welcome, Christian. Okay, thank you guys for doing this. Let's start more generally. We've obviously a lot of reference to what's gone on the last 2 years. Let's do that and then move on and look to the future. So let's throw it over to the far end to Alan to begin with. What have we come out of the pandemic thinking of in terms of the distribution of travel? Did it expose areas that should have been probably improved and modernized before the pandemic? Or actually, did some areas come out in credit, do you think?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, given that we launched in the middle of a pandemic, and then used a bunch of tools to try and stitch together a customer experience that made sense to allow the customer to make sense of all of the choices out there. The tooling actually, I think, was quite well developed. I think the trends that we started to see pre the pandemic, which was customers wanting a more experiential holiday, I think that sort of was thwarted a little bit. We're seeing people much more interested in going to the old stalwarts of European holidays rather than going further afield just because of the difficulties of doing that. So I think that's one of the big trends that we saw coming through. I think the technology that was developed prior to COVID actually has worked quite well as the distribution has moved much more online and much more away from shops simply because people couldn't take the holidays as well. I think the operational issues with ramping up from the industry having ramped down to fairly low levels is now probably the biggest obstacle to us growing quickly because we're going to have to deal with consumer sentiment off the back of it.
For Amadeus, obviously the industry went from selling holidays to refunding people. It went into reverse, didn't it? Now, the industry wasn't built to go backwards, potentially, really, was it? What did you see from Amadeus' point of view? What was the key kind of challenge from a platform like Amadeus?
No, I guess similar to what we have heard already, no? Definitely something we had never experienced before and which exposes challenges, no? To understand how to react. We had to react all very quickly. But we saw quickly as well how technology can help, no? How we can facilitate as well the reaction. Obviously, when you had the big changes, the service part, and how technology can help there. But as you said, we don't want to look backwards. We want to look forward and determine, okay, what have we learned? No? I think the biggest opportunity is to reflect now and think, how can we get stronger as an industry moving forward? And we believe we have, firstly, to understand very well the traveler. No? And I personally like to call it the traveler and not the customer, just recognizing that the traveler is a customer to many providers along its journey. And we need to give back the confidence and we need to inspire the traveler. So they are recognizing, and hopefully we have opportunities to discuss what are the new trends and how can we adjust there. So if we focus on that, and then we also embrace the collaboration we had seen so successfully throughout the past years, because we had to collaborate suddenly with bodies in the industry we didn't have to before. So collaboration between airlines, okay, collaboration between hotels, but suddenly we had to collaborate with health institutions, with laboratories, and we were able to do this, no? To predict how travel can function again. And I think this is one of the elements we need to take moving forward, to collaborate, no? And to make sure that the big themes, sustainability, for instance, we have heard about it, can only be achieved if we collaborate together. Yep. And that's important for us in Amadeus because we believe that technology can help a lot there. And this is where our thinking goes and where our innovation goes mostly right now.
Yeah. June, you work for Trip.com. In some ways, a massive business. Trip, Chinese, massive, huge business in China, but a bit of a challenger brand elsewhere. So, you're going to be, you aim to be one of the big OTAs out there. And I know, talking to the guys who I know in the UK at Trip.com, they talk about a customer focus and understanding the customer, which is what I guess we just heard from Mirja there. So, what's Trip.com's view of the future in terms of being customer centric, and how are you going to do that?
We think post-pandemic, every traveler tried to reestablish their travel experience, right? So we want to encourage them to reestablish the confidence, how to make the flexibility possible, like cancellations. But if airlines and hotels cannot offer these flexibility, then we look for partnership inside the industry and outside of the industry, such as our announcement just earlier this month. We are partnering with AXA Insurance even to expand this insurance to Germany, UK, and France to start with. And this definitely already based on our experience in China. So within the pandemic, even during the pandemic, for the past 2 years, we did greatly inside of China. And we also try to sell them products that they are sure about, but give the flexibility of the time, such as doing the live streaming of a fixed cost product, but then they can reconfirm whenever they feel like to travel, like their family feel like they are in good health condition, and that they can meet the health requirements, etc.
Yeah. I mean, Mirja said that a lot of the solutions are technology solutions, and actually the industry had to react quickly and get things to market at speed, which, you know, maybe they weren't doing before COVID, but there was a necessity to do.
Exactly. So we are combining the online to offline together, the services that we can offer together with our providers.
Okay. Jari, let's bring you in. You're another B2C brand on the stage. Stena Line, we all think ferries, but actually you're a B2C OTA. So just explain a bit about the group, because to make so the guys know who you represent.
Yeah, Stena Line owns a number of travel companies in Europe and also travel retail companies, and I am the CEO of these companies, not the ferry company as such.
No. And geographically, Northern Europe, you've got big brands in the north.
We are one of the biggest OTAs in the Nordics, and we are also a pretty big travel brand in Holland, in Denmark,
Yeah. So same opening question to you. You know, what did COVID sort of expose as the problems in distribution in travel, or did it actually say, actually, some things do work well?
Yeah, well, if we start with the downside, that's easier. One reflection that we had is that you actually earn more money on canceling flight tickets than selling them. And that says something about our business as such. Not to say that we earned any money anyway, but it was actually quite good business to cancel flight tickets. Then we coming then from a ferry operator, we are, to my knowledge, I'm not here to offend anybody, maybe somebody's doing the same, but I think we are the only one who can dynamically package a ferry and accommodation in Europe just with a couple of clicks. The car tour operation as such, which is a part of the travel world that I think many people are missing here. 64% of all travelers in Europe which stays over 4 nights in a commercial accommodation, they are actually traveling by car. Those customers were still moving during the pandemic because they had their own bubble in the car, they had their own bubble on the ferry, they had their own bubble in some kind of accommodation. So that one was okay. But the biggest reflection we had actually, and what was really, really good to understand, is the power of innovation. Because we also had time with our great technology team to sit down. I was saying we were product developing 2 years mainly, and we showed some of that to some of our partners yesterday on meetings, and it's a great response. And just to have time to sit down and really innovate for real. And we were asking ourselves the question, who will miss us tomorrow if we stop exist tomorrow? And I think everybody here should do that, because we are mediating, we are simplifying, but who will actually miss us tomorrow if we stop exist? And that is what we actually focused on. And we hope to be able, on the next one here, Pedro, we hope to be able to show you some really great stuff. Yeah,
good
together with you.
It's a good setup for next year. You invited yourself to speak again. So
yes, this, you know, I'm a sales and marketing guy to begin with, so.
Always do it in public, it's on the record.
Thank you, yeah.
Christian, same sort of opening question to you. I mean, Jari talked about taking the 2 years as an opportunity to rethink everything. I spoke to so many companies that did that. Some came back doing very similar things. What did you do during this 2-year sort of hiatus? What was your thinking? How did you come out of this period?
Well, I'm going to respond a little bit from the supplier perspective. even though I've been almost all my life in digital distribution, like most of the guys in the room. However, taking a look from the perspective of the supplier, from the hotel industry, and speaking about understanding the customer and innovation, and mixing that together with the huge hotel offering there is, hoteliers also have been very busy. We've been very busy in segmenting our product offering. You know, maybe pre-pandemic, a single brand would make it, or just an umbrella brand and 3-4 brands and segments. Now, if you see the trends of the most or the biggest hotel chains worldwide, they have a huge array of different brands focused on different customer needs and segments. So lifestyle brands and top all-inclusive luxury brands and economy. So it's a huge array of new brands that are actually focused on attracting the customer. So it's true, we need to understand the customer, and also from a supplier perspective, we need to give each customer what he wants. This has been combined very much not only with their own distribution channels that hotel chains, it was a trend before COVID already that hotel chains are investing a lot of money in their own technology and in achieving to grow their own direct distribution channels, but also with the B2B or the distribution to actually make sure that precise message of the product segmented to each customer really comes along. So this has been very interesting to see, and in which I think most of us are very busy.
Yeah, it's often, just to stick with you, and we'll get the other guys' views on this, but in travel it seems that sometimes the route of a hotel night to customer is a very circuitous route. I mean, it goes through so many pairs of hands. It's a can be very complicated. Almost it seems too complicated. Do you think we're looking at a period where that starts to become less complicated? We did see consolidation before COVID, you know, especially in the bed bank area. There was a few brands that came together. But do you think there needs to be more consolidation? Do you think it needs to be a simpler process?
There's been some consolidation already, a very important consolidation in our sector. When I speak about the digital distribution sector, probably there's going to come more. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell. But what I really think is that from a supplier perspective, what also COVID has shown to the hotel industry is that we really need to work with partners that add value. Yeah. I think the question you said, will somebody miss us if we stop existing tomorrow? This is something we really need to ask ourselves, all of us. Yeah. Not only the hotels as well. And so I think that the trend of really wanting to work with distributors that add value in any way, via technology, via that they own the customer is a horrible expression, but that they have a direct link to the end consumer, that they know the consumer, that they can provide data to you in order to also be able to invest in a better product offering. All that is very important, and I think the distribution player who adds that value will be always a winner.
Yeah. Just back to Alan on that. You worked for the old Thomas Cook, so you knew things from that big tour operating perspective. Now you're this more agile, smaller fleet of foot OTA. But do you think that the distribution landscape in travel is overly complicated and there needs to be further consolidation, or generally do all the layers add some value?
Yeah, I do think that there is more simplification needed. I think the distance between the flight and the hotel and the customer is sometimes too far. And if you think about what the customer really wants, particularly going forward, I think at the moment it's quite a simple world because people just want to travel on holiday and make sure they can come back. But actually sitting behind that is the long-term trend to people wanting to do things on holiday that they enjoy. And the descriptions of that and the facilitation of that, I don't think as yet is there. And I think that the processes are quite complicated to try and make that real for the customer. So I do think that simplification is necessary, whether or not that means necessarily consolidation. I'm not sure I'd immediately jump to that conclusion, but I would say that I think all of us need to be aware of what the customers want and start to facilitate that. So as customers perhaps want to think more about the environment of the place they're traveling to, the facilitation of that through technology is something I think we're going to have to think about. If people want a more gastronomic experience on holiday, how do we start to bring that to life? And technology then becomes the enabler for that, and that's not a simple process, but we're going to have to simplify it to be able to put it in front of the customer. So the customer on, what frankly is an increasingly smaller screen is able to understand what's being presented to them and be able to make sense of this vast landscape of travel choices they've otherwise got to navigate through.
Yeah. I mean, Jari, you wanted to come on that. Certainly COVID has raised customer expectations in terms of the information they get from the brand they're dealing with. Yeah. So they want all that information to hand. If it could be about health and safety, but increasingly about sustainability. And that's part of distribution. That's distribution of content and data, I guess, isn't it?
I started to think about when you said, does everybody has a value? And then maybe I'm going to disrupt everything now, and then you'll come back to the bar tonight, and then you can smack me if you like to.
You're very tall.
But yes, I'm tall. Anyway, I would like everybody, I mean, those of you who existed 20 years ago, have a look at your website, how it looked then, and try to have a look at how it looks today. The UX is a little bit better than 20 years ago, but the way we book travel, I'm not here to offend Expedia or anything, but we looked at Expedia's site 2003 and how it looks today. It is as complicated as it was then. We are no better than anybody else, but the way how people will book travel in the future, if you're an online, you have a family, you want to go on 5, 6 segments, drive through Europe or fly through Europe, then you make your bookings. It takes you some hours to get it there with 6, 7 websites. And then finally, your wife comes and said, well, what about then if we move this package 4 or 5 dates further on in order to compare prices? Jesus Christ. I mean, it is, and this, my wife is the smallest market investigation in the world, and she's always right. So from that point of view, if you want to do this, it was the similar thing for 20 years ago. It is as difficult today. We'll have to do something about that.
Yeah. He makes a good point. How complicated. We call it, sometimes it's called a trip, but we like to call it a holiday. It's a holiday at the end of the day. That is the product you want. But of course, that's a component, a building of components together. It could be 5 or 6 components. The moment we get from 1 to 2 adds so much complexity that I'll come to you in a minute, but that makes the distribution of these products much more difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you point out the UX experience, no? So what is the experience on the website? I believe actually coming back to what Alan is saying on understanding the customer, I think distribution is probably the omni-channel will always exist there, and you need to position your products in all the different channels. But I think we need a layer on top in order to understand what is the traveler expecting. And I bring an old buzzword back here, personalization. But I believe we have an opportunity now because the data is available and the technology can facilitate that the data flows, so we really understand what the traveler brings. So expects, and I believe it's actually not so important what is the UI you have, but in the background, you already need to establish the offering in the way the customer expects. And this is the big difference that right now, when you think about the end-to-end customer journey, you were pointing to this, no? The airline or the hotel, the data is not flowing. And we need this layer between the different providers so that we can understand and we can personalize an offering in the end. And this is the biggest opportunity, and where I believe then all the distributors can do a much better job.
Yeah, Christian, you want to...
I was I just wanted to throw in a word here for what Jari was saying and also to what Mirja was saying. It comes down also to collaboration. I think you said it before, Mirja, or you, Alan, I don't remember. Collaboration is key to all this. I mean, technology is fine, personalization is super important, but what you were saying, I mean, how do you make it easier? How do you actually, because at the end, no, it's a problem with the supplier, I need to call the hotel, I mean, if we really work on that collaboration, because sometimes it seems like we live in different universes. Hotels on one side, airlines on the other one, you know, and technology brings us together. But then there's also the cultural aspect or the approach of wanting to collaborate, and that would actually fix a lot of the things to the human factor.
Well, collaboration is obviously key, because all these moving parts have to work together, don't they, for this complicated product to work?
Absolutely.
And so June, maybe the COVID did expose this. I mean, getting money back off airlines, getting money back off hoteliers, difficult, but also to go in the other way. A lot of hoteliers weren't paid by some of their distribution partners, and good luck trying to collaborate with Ryanair if you're an OTA at the minute. So there isn't really that collaboration. People still think they can operate singularly and not work with other entities within travel.
But I think it's important that we can share data. Because of those, you know, I wouldn't say those regulations shouldn't be there. It should be there, but not being able to share data among suppliers, or, I mean, we're all in this together, right? We cannot share hotel data with flights. And that makes it difficult because, as you all know, that Trip.com is a one-stop shop. Shopping place for a customer. So they book a flight and then they book a hotel separately. They didn't like the package that we created for some reason, so they created their own, but picking one flight and one hotel. But if the flight gets delayed, we are not allowed to letting the hotel know. So Chris will be in trouble because after midnight, the flight just arrived. And in their system, they have this as a no-show already, but the customer appeared at 2 a.m. in the hotel. And you cannot reinstate, right? Reinstate the reservation. And then all the customer service going wrong and wrong. And this is all wasted effort in the time, not just the cancellation, but the flexibility. So the regulations are not allowing us to share data among the travel industry suppliers. And how can we make this change a bit? Right, to make the people who are safe, or the companies in the industry who are safe, who can share data, so our common customers feel they are well served.
But the common issue with sharing data, I mean, you know this, is that most people don't want to share data with the big guys in the industry because they believe they take value out of that, and it's their data, so they feel as though they need to hold on to it. It's what their USP is. I remember actually going to Madrid with to Amadeus conference a few years back, and you had Tim Berners-Lee speak there about creating the internet, and his vision for the internet as was at the time, and how it's not what he kind of envisioned at the beginning. And his view was giving power back to the data owner, which is the individual. It's not the company or any corporate. And he has this vision of how the internet could change. Is that the answer, that we find ways of maybe technology coming in where power is given back to the consumer to manage their own data and give it people when they want a service or product?
Yeah, I think it could be an answer, but first coming back to what June was saying. So the good news is this is possible. So there is technology which allows trusted data exchange, respecting all the regulations, GDPR in particular, but also other regional regulations. So there is technology where you can decide with whom you want to exchange which data in order to service a common traveler. So this is existing. This is the good news. Then coming back to who is the owner of this data. I think that's a very interesting discussion. No? I think we all want to own our own data. This is what we say. It's probably a similar discussion then on sustainability. We would be saying, yes, we would be willing to invest, and I'm willing to invest time in determining with whom I'm sharing my data, but in reality, it's actually not the case. So surveys are saying that 80% of all consumers share the data if they get a perception that they get a return back, and they actually are not very concerned where this is shared, the data. We need to take care of the other 20%, and they are probably decentralized IDs or offerings where the individual can decide with whom the data is shared is a good answer. So it's probably a combination.
Yeah.
No, I think there's not one answer to how this construct could work. But definitely there are opportunities right now to share data, and this can definitely empower better travel propositions.
Yeah. Alan, going back to that collaboration and partnerships, if you're a hotelier coming out of COVID, and it does date back, unfortunately, to the collapse of Thomas Cook, if I'm a hotelier, I want to be distributing with partners who pay me, and not have, it's an eggs in basket issue, isn't it? Not have all your eggs in one basket, which makes distribution potentially more complicated, more fragmented, and therefore more difficult to manage. But again, technology can help with that. Is that where you think it will go from the supplier's point of view, saying, I want to be distributing as widely as possible, and then try to manage that as efficiently as I can?
I mean, my experience with, particularly with hoteliers, is they do that quite naturally anyway. So they tend to, there's a planning cycle that sits there, and they sort of spread the risk out through the various distribution channels, and each of the distribution channels has a kind of a risk-reward structure to it, starting with the traditional tour operators and ending with people like Booking and the channels that they can use in between. To come back to the original point, I mean, the old Thomas Cook collapsed owing quite a lot of hoteliers' money, and one of the things that we were very clear on when we started the new business is that we would put the customer's money into a trust that was administered by the CAA, so we don't actually touch customers' money until they return back from holiday. And that's quite a powerful tool to persuade hoteliers that what happened with the old Thomas Cook can't happen with us again, because actually the customer money sits completely separate from us. We don't look at it. I'm not sure that the diversification beyond that, I mean, as I say, I think the hoteliers are doing a good job of breaking up their risk and then distributing it. I think the question around how does that distribution work, and I'll come back to that customer view, I think is probably where there's opportunities. The whole business of being able to cancel, to be able to amend easily, particularly in a world where COVID is going to be around for some time. We are going to have to see people doing more of that. And I think the airlines also playing their part in that in a simple way that you can bring to life on a small screen. Because if you think about the rules and regulations and the fine prints around refunds, cancellations, amendments that are applicable in both the airline and the hotel, trying to bring that together into a package that you can offer to the customer and say, we can, deal with what you need. We may charge you a little bit more to make it flexible. Actually, that flexibility is quite difficult to back off, and a lot of the technology tools are still quite nascent in that space. Yeah.
Christian, as a supplier, what are you looking for from a trusted distribution partner post-COVID? Has that changed now? Do you be more careful if you distribute through?
Well, I think that the old saying of having all the eggs in the same basket is always true, or one or two baskets, and it just makes sense from a strategic point of view, as Alan was saying, to have a wide umbrella of distribution, and based on certain risks, based on distribution models, etc. Right? However, I think that what we're seeing right now, with a super strong demand pivoting back, from having almost no demand to no demand at all, and now having, I would not like to say an excess of demand, but definitely a very, very strong demand for this summer. And somebody was saying this morning, we don't know if this is sustainable for next year, or I think it was Dr. Gertz who said that. Hoteliers are really trying to focus on those distributors that really make sense and add value again. I mean, I think pre-COVID, we had, again, a huge variety of distributors all over the place. There was already some concerns within the hotel industry isn't there maybe too many players all over the place? But what is certain is that right now, hoteliers are really looking into that with a strong focus to really look to those that add the value, as I said before, which of course is good for all of you guys, because all of you in this room are top companies that really add the value. I think that the tourism industry is very small, but the digital distribution industry is even smaller, and here we are. I think this is la crème de la crème from the distribution perspective, and this really makes sense to the hotelier, no? Yeah. Bringing technology, bringing the customer.
We heard at the beginning of the day from SiteMinder about platformization, and actually nowhere is that more apparent than in distribution. You're seeing the rise of a number of startup API marketplaces using technology to try to make things quick and agile and simple. Yes. Amadeus has been a platform doing that for many, many years. You find yourself with some challenges, maybe.
No, I really appreciated what John was explaining there regarding an ecosystem, but as well a platform. It's true, Amadeus is a typical platform business for many, many years. But we believe as well that there's an opportunity to grow this, to make the platform more open. So technology is there now, open APIs. You can much easier connect, and we are also a big believer of what John was talking about, that it requires a collaboration in an ecosystem. So we can connect different offerings, and I think for distribution it's very important. We have only been talking about the distribution, but I think I would like to bring another perspective. Distribution is mostly digital, and you try to attract the customer. But how does this need to link to the actual experience when the customer is traveling? This needs to be consistent. Yeah. You cannot only say, okay, I want the customer to have this experience when he acquires, and then when the experience happens, it's completely different. One example, just when you come to the hotel, and the hotel offers, when you click on the Wi-Fi, why don't you sign up and you have your digital assistant, and I help you to have a digital experience throughout your stay. Say, oh, very interesting. I sign up, I can't locate your reservation. So the whole promise of getting service along my journey is not relevant anymore. So I think there's an issue if we don't connect the distribution side with the whole end-to-end experience, because then the customer gets frustrated. And on the ecosystem, it's important that you get this knowledge, that you share the knowledge so that the distribution, you have a feedback loop, that the distribution can be even more powerful again, because you understand what happened on the previous journey. So I believe that ecosystems will play a very important role moving forward, and small and big players have an important role to play. And it's important that we facilitate there the discussions and collaborations. In Amadeus, we have a lot of these initiatives. Just to mention one, Travel Innovation Club, where we bring different players from different verticals together to innovate together. So we are not only thinking on our own solution we want to offer to a customer, but we think end-to-end and how can we innovate together. And we believe this is the power we have learned throughout these past 2 years, and which hopefully we can extrapolate for the next years to come.
Yeah. Jari, the analogy was made earlier on of mobile operating systems. So are you an iOS person or are you an Android person? And people choose what they like. So you've got the walled garden of Apple, or you've got the more opens. Is that an analogy that fits travel distribution? Do we need choice like that? Do we need more than one platform competing for dominance? Or are we looking for a one-stop shop? Because again, that brings the complexity.
No, I've been following the discussion on, for example, super apps, which seems to be something really interesting in Asia. But I've also been testing some of them, and I mean, when you have to be an engineer in order to use them, then it starts to be a little bit complicated. So I have 2 daughters at home, and to try to answer your question regarding how is the future customer of ours going to behave, then I come back to many of the things that we look at from an inside-in perspective, all these problems we're talking about, they don't care. It's supposed to work, it's supposed to be easy, it's supposed to give value, etc. So when I show our website and whatever to them, or our mobile solutions, They are really critical, actually. And the older one now is going to be a consumer within 2 years with a fairly high salary, I suppose, because she's going to be a doctor. So then, what are we going to offer them? That's the conversation we need to have. That's the real conversation, not talk about whether I get a percentage to the right or to the left. Because I think, actually, that Christian, if we can, together with him, show him real technology that really adds value on any device, because the world is not going to be standardized, then I think we'll have a really, really good offer also to these customers. One thing, though, which is really difficult is that the hotel data as such is it's not consolidated in a good way. And that goes with train, that goes with ferries quite a lot as well.
Yeah.
So we'll have to work on that.
We are, and Alan, we are moving into this expectation of a kind of a multimodal world where a customer can go, well, I need to not just check my one flight versus another, which, as he said before, is hard enough, but what about taking the train or adding a ferry in, or taking a car, etc. But not just that, accommodation. You know, we were at the short stay.
Transport is underexposed as such.
Totally,
we are very flight-orientated, all of us, and I can tell you that the world looks a little bit different going forward. Yeah. Not that everybody will go on a ferry, don't misunderstand me.
But accommodation types as well. So we heard the short stay sector wants to get into conventional travel and challenge the hotels, or maybe the hotels are embracing it, hotel chains. So as an OTA, you're going to be thinking, well, I need to be able to offer all these options to my customers, because if I don't offer them, they'll find someone who does.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm very keen, actually, to think about what a customer wants and then move to offer them that. The sustainability agenda, I think, is an interesting one, particularly with reference to flights. And therefore, I don't want to just offer flying. I want to be able to offer rail. I want to be able to offer car. I mean, I think a lot of people, the Mediterranean climate change is getting hotter and hotter during the summer. Actually, there's tons of parts of Europe that the UK consumer traditionally never traveled to. Perhaps the Germans and the Scandinavians travel to it more. We should be able to offer that. It's becoming quite international. And so I do think that more choice is something that a consumer wants, but the choices I think, have to be presented in a context of the things that they're interested in. You can't just throw everything at the wall and hope something sticks. And to the point about user experience, which I think is an interesting one, and I can say this because, I built a website that sold underpants. I was the CTO at M&S. And then I built a website that sold travel. And I think we managed to take a really exciting product and turn it into quite a boring purchasing experience, which is, if you ever get an opportunity to look at our app, what we did with the app is we had a number of people who went on holiday, filmed the things they did on holiday, shared the videos, and then you can click on it to buy a holiday in that place. And it's kind of just turning it on its head a little bit. We as the industry think that a holiday is a flight and a hotel. It's not. It's actually a group of people getting together to spend time doing the things they love with people they love. Actually facilitating, that's our job. And I think, starting as purchasing experience with, what destination do you want to go to? How many people do you want on it? And go through that, well-known hierarchy isn't the only way that people are going to buy holidays in the future. And I think we're forcing people to think about holidays in a slightly artificial way. I think we can use technology to help people think about the holidays as they want to think about it, which is a way of sharing experiences with people they want to spend time with.
I think you've got your new strapline for Thomas Cook. Our holidays aren't pants.
Don't give up your day job.
I'm sorry. We've got only 4 minutes left, so and we were happy to take questions from the audience. It's been quiet out there, but if anyone does want to ask a question, I can just about see everyone. If I do that, raise a hand. There's no one at the minute. Let's start to wrap things up with just a bit of a sort of thought about what's coming up. After the 2008 financial crash, there was a fintech revolution, partly caused by it, I think partly caused by regulators saying it exposed some problems in that industry. in a sense, that's what happened to travel. We had a massive 2-year crash. Do you think that we're going to see the same thing in travel, that what happened over the last 2 years will prompt an era of renewed innovation because it's now a necessity rather than something that you're trying to put off or not think about? Christian?
Well, of course, I think technology has been proven to be actually key, and I think hoteliers who have been traditionally a very traditional business approach are embracing that technology more and more. I would also, hanging a little bit onto what Alan was saying, the way we think people will be booking holidays is a very good point. I think social media has had a massive impact. What people do on holidays, what they share on Instagram, that inspiration phase from a marketing perspective is amazing. The trend that we're seeing there, especially not only with the young people, but they're getting older. I mean, we always thought, well, yeah, the millennials. There's millennials who are 38 years old right now already. Huh? Yeah. So, I mean, social media is absolutely key nowadays in distribution. We need to work much more with them. And again, collaboration between the product, the distribution, and the exposure is going to be key.
Yeah, that was part of the banking revolution. It was that banking was a pain before the fintech revolution. Now it's actually sometimes quite a
who want to go back
slick
on Fridays to the bank and pay their bills?
The check. Yeah. So is something like that going to happen in travel, do you think?
Well, yeah, sure. I'm not sure. I hope to be back next year, so maybe. But one thing that I think we talk too little about, with all respect to Spain and these big destinations, is also that COVID actually changed the way which destinations people book. Mm-hmm. In the Nordics, we have seen a massive movement. I'm in the board of Visit Sweden, and we have seen a massive movement into the Nordics now lately, because people are actually, of some reason, they are opening their eyes a little bit. And that is actually something that we need to think about. In our case, we will launch a Nordic bed bank soon, just because of that, because we are a specialist in that area with the biggest incoming agency. So yes, it made us think in different ways. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. June, I mean, I know Trip.com wants to be seen to be an innovative customer-facing brand. Do you see a period of change coming up now?
Definitely. We think that staycation is more popular than ever before. Uh-huh. So people get the chance to explore their own country or where they are familiar with the regulations.
Yes.
But little by little, they still want to see outside of their own country. So I think we still have hope and confidence, and we can make it together to happen.
Yeah. And final word to Mirja. You said before you were working with innovative companies and partners. So is Amadeus, are you preparing for a period of rapid change now?
Exactly. So obviously I'm slightly biased working in a technology company, but I believe that technology, cloud technology, AI, data exchange technology gives an opportunity to innovate much faster and to innovate cross industry. So I think there's a huge potential, and it's now really the time to change this. So, and I have heard very good examples already during today and last night. So I think there's a lot happening, and we will only see more and more coming.
Lovely. Look. The clock's run down. I'm getting the kill it.
So we all see that
sign from the front row, and we've got a great speaker coming up to finish before we go to lunch. So please join me in thanking our brilliant panel. Thanks to John, thanks to Mirja, thanks to June, thanks to Jari, thanks to Christian. Thank you very much.